Okay, Shalom. As talked about in my last videos about Montezuma's haul and the Aztecs and going into Cortez and how much gold was taken, and looking into just accounts from 1825 to 1850, how much gold was acquired from South America and Mexico and combined. I mentioned in the end of the video how we were going to go into talking about a story, a newspaper archive from the California News National Documented Newspaper Archives. Stories about mummies that were found and catacombs that were found from different parts of the country. Now, the California Newspaper Archive goes at least back to the 1820s. I haven't really seen anything before that. I don't believe that newspapers were being pushed out of California before that point. So pretty much we got a good context from the 1820s to now, where you can search up many things, where I've searched up many things. And I like it because it's a different flow from what I've been looking up at the actual National Archive page. And I think it's called the Internet Archive page, where that is just so many, you get so many results, and I can spend just 10-15 minutes scrolling down looking for books and articles on that page alone. But this one's a little bit more specific. It really details strictly out of the Americas, strictly out of California. So in this one, we're talking about a tomb or a catacomb or a cavern of mummies found in Lexington, Kentucky. So this article is from, hold on, let me zoom out here. I got it pulled up. Daily Alta, California, Volume 4, number 205, July 26, 1853. This article was written in 1853 about a catacomb of mummies in Kentucky. So let's see what these guys found in Kentucky. Lexington in Kentucky stands nearly on the site of an ancient town which was of great extent and magnificence, as an amply evident by the wide range and circumvallatory works and the quantity of ground it once occupied. There was connected with the antiquities of this place a catacomb formed in the bowels of the limestone rock, about 15 feet below the surface of the earth, adjacent to the town of Lexington. This grand object, so novel and extraordinary in this country, was discovered in 1775 by some of the first settlers, whose curiosity was excited by something remarkable in the character of the stones which covered the entrance to a cavern within. So this article was written in 1853. And this is why I like these archive pages, especially the state ones, because it's not just going into something that happened in California. It's, hey, in 1853, we're reminding you that in 1775, the first explorers came across catacombs, came across mounds, and these what were found inside of them. And we're going to get down deeper, and we're going to see some more information that they let out. So I suggest you go and you look up these archive pages and you take your own little swing at them, seeing what you can find, seeing what you can dig up on. All right, so let's go back. And now they said that they found not just one, but there was multiple ones, and how they found these were by not unnatural stone placement. So they would walk across the land, or the first explorers were walking around what is now known as modern-day Kentucky, and they would see piles of rocks that didn't look naturally put there. So then they would start pulling them off and picking them up, and they would see that there's caverns or there's cave entrances underneath these rocks. All right, so let's keep on going. With segmented numbers and provided with light, they descended and entered without obstruction a spacious apartment. The sides and extreme ends were formed with niches and compartments and occupied by figures representing men. So they're walking through these things, and they're walking through different compartments, and boom, they turn over to one side and they see a room, dark, damp room full of figures that look like men sitting there, and they figure out, and lo and behold, they are mummies. When alarm subdued and the sentiment of dismay and surprise permitted further research and inquiry, the figures were found to be mummies preserved by the art of embalming to a great state of perfection, as was known among the ancient Egyptians 1800 years ago before the Christian era, which was about the time that the Israelites were in bondage in Egypt when this art was in its perfection. Wow. So again, right there, this is why I'm saying you need to go read these things. They're telling you right there, we know that they switched the maps. We know that the white man has switched the maps. He switched the sides of the maps. He said that everything that happened in the Bible happened over there in the Middle East and Africa and all those lands. When in reality, we know that the Americas are the true ancient lands. We know the Americas are way older. We know that ancient Egypt was in the Americas, and all these lands in Judah and all these lands like that were in the Americas, and there's way more proof to prove that they were over here in the Americas, and that the Americas are the Holy Land and the ancient lands than actually the fake lands that they have over there. So here we learn that. Let's go read that again. The figures were found to be mummies preserved by the art of embalming to a great state of perfection, as was known among the ancient Egyptians 1800 years before the Christian era, which was about the time that the Israelites were in bondage in Egypt when this art was in perfection. Why would they mention that? I wonder what else they found in these tombs. It's one thing to find mummies that are similar, that have similarities to the Egyptians and how they've been wrapped and embalmed. But here it sounds like it's pretty much saying we found Egyptian mummies in Kentucky and a catacomb. I'm sure we've all heard of the Egyptian citadel in the Grand Canyon. And as I mentioned before, you should know by now that the Americas are the Holy Land. In Egypt, the Nile is just the Mississippi River. So they're being sneaky. So now over here in Kentucky, they found these Egyptian mummies. And now they're saying that the type of embalming and the type of wraps and the type of way that they were taken care of was to such a perfection that it wasn't done at this point until back in the day with the Israelites when they were in bondage. So that was, I guess, the peak. No, that's not surprising. The peak of the Egyptian civilization was when the Israelites were underneath them. And that just goes to show you that the Israelites were dwelling over here and that this is the Holy Land. Very interesting that they would add this little part to the end about Egypt and the bondage of the Israelites when this art was in its perfection. Unfortunately for iniquity, science and everything else held sacred by the illumined and learned, the Indus, let's see, what does that say? Intimidable discovery was made at a period when a bloody and inveterate war was carried on between the Indian and the whites, and the power of the natives was displayed in so savage a manner that the whites were filled with revenge. So pretty much when they first got over here, the natives were kicking the white people's ass. The Caucasian settlers that were coming across the stolen land that they've arrived on, expected to be treated nicely, they were walking across the country, claiming land that wasn't theirs, spreading diseases, kicking people off, and the Indians were kicking their ass. The natives were kicking their ass. And that there was a war going on between them, and that they were very, very, very upset. They were filled with revenge, these white people. So let's read what they did. And the power of the natives were displayed in such a savage manner that the whites were filled with revenge. Animated by this vindictive spirit, the discoverers of the catacombs delighted to wreak their vengeance even on the mummies. Wow. Supposing them to be the same Indian race with whom they were at war with, or who they were them at war, they dragged them out to the open air, tore the bandages open, kicked the bodies into the dust, and made a general bonfire of most of the ancient remains antiquity could boast. Unbelievable. So at the time in 1775 when this tomb was discovered, They were at war with the Indians, the white people that walked across this. They had no regard for sacred anything, no regard for anything, as it says in this article, no regard for antiquities or anything that the illumined or learned would be appreciative of. So they were so angry, they were so upset with the natives that they were at war with. They just assumed automatically that these were their ancestors, or this tomb that they found was something important to the natives that they were at war with. They dragged out the mummies from inside of there and stomped them into the dust and made a bonfire and burned whatever the rest they could find in there. I'm sure that they stole a lot of stuff. I'm sure they didn't burn everything. I'm sure they took a lot of stuff. I'm sure that they didn't like a lot of the stuff they saw, or a lot of the stuff that they found was, well, let's keep on reading. I'm not going to just make guesses. I'm not just going to make generalized statements. We have a whole article here telling us, and it seems to be pretty honest about what they did. Because most Caucasians would hide this if they knew this article existed. They wouldn't want you to know that. We all know that they destroy history, and they keep on destroying history. They've burned whole entire libraries. I got another article talking about. In fact, I'm going to get that before I stop this video. We're going to read about how the Cortez burned a lot of the records of the Aztecs, and burned as many as he could. And then it's convenient that they make up a bunch of stuff about the Aztecs now that we can't confirm. So we read that these dudes were in a war with the Indians. They came across a catacomb. The white man was so jealous and so angry and they wanted vengeance upon the Indians that were destroying them so badly, that he just assumed that they were the same tribe, and that these were the ancestors of the Indians that he was at war with, and brought out all the antiquities, brought out all the skeletons, brought out all the mummies, unwrapped them, and stomped them into the dust. The descent of the cavern is gradual, the width of 4 feet and the height 7, and the whole length of the catacomb was found to be 18 rods and a half by 6.5. And calculating from the niches and shelvings on the sides, it was sufficiently sufficiently to have contained at least 2,000 subjects. What? 2,000 subjects were inside this catacomb? So there you have it. Let's see what else I can get. Let's see. So as I said, we're going to read another quick article about, this one's from 1852, May 22nd, the Nevada Journal, Volume 2, November 5th, number 5. And we're going to, I want to get the whole thing, but I think I just screenshotted this small part. Within an inner apartment of the Grand Temple of Kokshiningo are kept about 50 volumes similar in appearance to the ones referred to, which is all said by the priest were preserved from the extensive collection of records known to have existed in Mexico at the time of the conquest, and which were destroyed by Cortez in the heat of his imperial intemperate zeal against the paganism of the Aztecs. The volumes preserved at the Coxchensingo were regarded as holy things, and are only to be seen on days of great public rejoicing or calamity. So let me see if I can go to where I found this, because this was an article about these Mexicans would come down, or not the Mexicans, but these natives would come down to trade, and they would bring certain things sometimes. And this article was going into, I don't know the full thing, but I just wanted to kind of read it to put in context of the destruction that the Spanish and the Caucasians would do to ancient things that they would find, and ancient records that they would find over here. That this goes into how a young native man came down from a pyramid, or parts of the jungle of Mexico, or even beyond that. I'm not sure. The article itself didn't say. I remember reading the article, and they would bring sometimes things to trade, and usually, but said this time around they were shocked by he brought a very, very ancient book with him, and they said it was rare, and they're like, what are you doing? We thought like this is really rare because Cortez destroyed all your records, and in the name of Jesus Christos, in the name of destroying all your pagan records and all your pagan things, which we know that they lied about the paganism, and I mentioned that in the video about the Aztecs before, about, and in the mention about the voodoo video where the white man will say, and to be able to justify destroying nations and destroying their records and making up his own narrative about them, he will tell you that they were pagans, they were killing each other, they were eating each other, they were worshiping devils, they were devils themselves. And this is a very convenient way that he used and the Spanish used to be able to come in and take over certain places and to justify killing whole entire native populations. And then in this case, burning, not only killing whole entire native populations, stealing everything they have and burning their records. And we know that the art of burning records and burning people's history is not done because they're just strictly pagan. It's because you try to control a narrative about them. You're trying to wipe them out of history, or you're trying to wipe their records, so it's harder for them to come back and do something to you if you don't end up killing all of them. So with this being said, check out the California newspaper archive page. Check out the internet archive pages. I got a lot more stuff that I want to get into. I got a lot more stories that I'm going to get into. Some of them funny. Some of them are going to be very short. Some of them are going to be a little bit longer, and I'm going to have to do some more work on them and do some more research on them. But with that being said, all praises to the Most High. Thank you, Yahweh, for the understanding that you give all of us. You guys need to look into the Lion's Gate portal, which is coming up, and get ready and prepared for that. Shalom, shalom, shalom. All praises to the Most High. Let His will be done.